Hi there, in this video we're going to review the Mozztronics DI-2 Valve Direct Box Mark II. We are also going to present the bass loops that we will be using in the upcoming Big Muff comparison videos. But for now, let's stick to the DI-2 and get into details. Welcome back to the Database. I'm Jean-Marc Fonlot, and I'm proud to announce that we have officially crossed the 500k subs mark. You guys are amazing. Thanks to all of you, but thanks also to the builders that have put their trust in me to review their products, their creations. Builders such as Andrew from Mozztronics. He makes excellent products at a professional level, and the DI-2 is proof of that. So what is it exactly? What is the DI-2? Well, it's a DI box, but it's also a preamp. So DIs are meant to transform a unbalanced signal into a balanced one. This guarantees that there is no loss in signal quality, and it prevents noise from getting into the sound, especially when using long cables over a long cable distance. And the preamp, well, you know what it is. It's a sculpting tool that is meant to boost or cut certain frequencies, mostly bass, mids, and treble. But also preamps are meant to add a touch of character and increase the level of a signal, and in some cases add a touch or a lot of saturation. The valve or tube inside the DI-2 helps to add an organic character to the sound, but not necessarily a warmer tone on its own. It enhances harmonics, adds clarity to the sound without coloring it, unless you raise the gain. Then saturation starts to appear, and in this case, it's evenly done throughout the frequencies. So what does saturation add to the sound? Well, basically two things: compression and substance. It fills in the empty spaces in a mix, as I like to say, making the sound fuller and a bit thicker, yet still defined. The DI-2 includes switchable 3-band EQ and an ultra-low option. These can be simultaneously bypassed with the EQ switch. There's also a bright switch independent to the EQ section that adds brightness and texture on the top end of the frequencies. And for bass, it's almost like switching on a tweeter on a cab. And talking about that, switching on the ultra-low option is a bit like as if you were playing through a bass amp. Was that intended? I don't know, but it works. Basically, it warms up the sound. I think it lowers a narrow section of the mids and it slightly boosts the lows. I'm not sure, but that's what I hear, at least. In the front panel, you can find the input and through jack sockets. Through is the same signal as the input. There are two switches that we did not talk about, the pad and the earth switches. When pad 20 dB is selected, the input signal is attenuated by 20 decibels. This means that you can push harder the valve by raising the gain control, ending up in compression with only a slight amount of saturation appearing at the highest level. The earth on, earth lift switch is basically there to prevent hum noise from ground loops. And finally, the balanced XLR output. Same output, but unbalanced at the back, which is great for connecting the DI-2 to a bass amp or the return loop of a bass amp to use this as the main preamp. Or come to think of it, you can even plug this directly into an active cab. And finally, the power supply input socket. Remember that it's a 15 volts AC at 0.4 amps. I have already used the DI-2 in many videos lately. By the way, I always describe the gear I use in the description box under the videos. I also used it in studio recently to record the warm, dry signal of my bass that runs parallel to the overdriven one in an album that we are making with my band. As you can hear in the sound samples of this video, the difference between the dry signal and the one that goes through the DI-2 is noticeable, to say the least. That's why I always recommend using a preamp when recording in studio, or even playing live for that matter. What the Mozztronics does is help in a very intuitive way to instantly get a good tone, one that just works well. Actually, going back to the sound samples of this video, it was hard for me to decide what kind of tone I would use for every song because it all sounded good. What I did was start with deciding the level of saturation I wanted and then, use the EQ to make it sound even better. So it all comes down to details. With this level of quality at such a reasonable price, I just checked price right now and I saw a brand new one for 440 Australian dollars. This is a DI preamp that I would greatly recommend to any bass player that has a home studio, but even professional studios that want a simple DI box that can also help sculpt the sound of the bass player that comes in and doesn't have the proper gear. But at the end of the day, I would just recommend it for its simplicity, beautiful sound, and accurate tonal palettes. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments section below, or you can contact me on Instagram at the What A Bass channel, where you can follow me, by the way. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. By the way, the Big Muff comparison videos will come out in about 2 weeks. I'm still waiting for 1 or 2 pedals to come, so we'll see how that goes. Bye-bye.